There's going to be a day within the next 10 years that interest will actually exceed $1 trillion. Right now, we're spending $400 billion on interest. So it's a real problem. It's crowding out and becoming one of the largest items we have in the budget. Why can't we get there? You know, what seems to be the problem? The first problem is math. And they have us there's something, it's fuzzy, it's called Washington math. So Washington math, if you read the Washington Post, they'll say, oh no, it's not just cutting 1%, your budget's going to cut 10 trillion over the next 10 years. And here's where the difference is. If we don't spend any more money, let's say last year we spent about 4 trillion and we keep spending 4 trillion for the next 10 years. Would that be cutting any money or would that be spending the same amount? Be careful what you answer. The Washington Post and the liberal media will tell you that we've now cut 10 trillion if we keep spending the same over 10 years. Why? Because they're anticipating the curve of spending, the baseline of spending is this red line going up. So spending's going up like this, but most people in their normal household income would say, well, I made $40,000 next year, and if I make 45, that's an increase. In government, they say, oh no, we anticipated you making 45,000 next year, so it's really not an increase. They work it on a baseline that is elevated, and so if we don't spend $10 trillion more than we spent this year over the next 10 years, they will say that we actually have cut spending. See, this is a real problem. So, for example, on our budget, it's this dotted green line. We cut 2% a year over about a 5-year period, and then we allow government to grow at about 2% a year. And people would say, oh, well, doesn't look like you're really cutting spending. That's the truth of the matter. Over about a 10-year period, spending will actually increase 18% over where we are today. But the fake news media will report that we've cut 10 trillion. This is not a rounding error. We say that spending is going up 18%, and the fake news will say, oh, they've cut $10 trillion in spending, and orphans and widows, and the older generation would be all out on the doorstep, and there'd be no government. No, we're talking about a $4 trillion government. It's still going to be spending close to $4 trillion. What we won't do is let it go to $5 trillion over the next 10 years. This is eminently reasonable. And I've talked to people from the right, the left, and the center and said, can you live with 99 or 98% of what you spent last year? I've yet to have a person say that for the good of the country, why don't we do that? And see, what would happen is it would be a compromise. Who drives the spending debate around here? Who drives that we need more spending? It's really both parties, but in recent years, it's been the Republicans. The Republicans say we have to have more military spending. The Democrats say we'll give you more military spending if you give us more welfare spending. So all spending goes up, and that's the compromise. People say we don't compromise. Hey, for spending money, these guys compromise every day, and it's at your expense, and it's why the deficit's so big. What about a different compromise? What if the right and the left said, well, military is important, the left said social welfare is important, and they said, but you know what? For the good of the country, let's spend 99% of what we spent last year on these programs, or 98%. It could be done, but it takes resolve, and the American people need to know that those who are in charge are not doing anything about this.